This is the U Show podcast.
Got it on to Suter. Score!
Wow, what a shot by Ryan Suter.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome into the U Show podcast. As always, I'm Chris Treft with Ben Gisselson. We've got a great show lined up for you. Later on in the show, we're talking to Ryan Suter, who is a guy who never played in the USHL, but he's a guy that has a large footprint in the United States Hockey League, being an owner of the Madison Capitols, and just with his presence in USA Hockey and Wisconsin Hockey and all that. I mean, he's just a great ambassador for hockey in America, and obviously that leads to a big impact on the United States Hockey League. But first, speaking of impactful people, a guy who, if you watch him play, he's not a guy who's going to score a flashy goal. He's not a guy that's going to get that big goal in Game 7 and get on the highlight reel by any means. But he's a guy that everybody loves. In Dubuque, he's a fan favorite. He's getting some great attention because why we're talking about is they wrote a story about him on NHL.com, but it's Reggie Millette, Ben, and he's a guy you've seen play more than me because when I'm watching, I'm looking for goals, I'm looking for highlights, so I don't get to see him too often. But every person you talk to absolutely loves the kid. And even if you look at Oliver David, when we talked about him on our podcast previously when he won Coach of the Year, he was crying when he talked about Reggie Millette. That's how much of an impact this kid has.
The first time I saw Reggie Millette's name was at the beginning of this past season. Des Moines played Dubuque early in the year. I believe it was mid-October. And I was doing my homework as I do for every team. And at this point now, 3 years into calling games in the USHL, I've seen a lot of backgrounds. I've seen a lot of where you likely see USHL players come from. NAHL for some of the guys that will come in as older players. You see a lot of Minnesota high school hockey. You see a lot of New England prep school hockey, Michigan AAA hockey around the country. One thing that I have never seen, I've only seen it once, and it came from Reggie Millette, was playing Tier 3 junior hockey. And not saying he's the only one to ever do it, but in my 3 years in the league broadcasting games, he's the only guy that I remember seeing and doing my homework and thinking, now this is interesting. This is different. Little did I know the story beneath the story. I just saw the Tier 3 NA3HL hockey, which in its own right is a great league. I have good friends from Division III college hockey who played in the NA3. It's a very good level, but you don't necessarily see that trajectory very often. Players that play there and then make their way to the USHL and not only make it here, but stay here. And not only did Millette stay here this past season after he played in the NAHL last season, but he became, like you said, Chris, a fan favorite. I can think back to games at the Mystique Ice Center in Dubuque where I don't think I've ever seen that building, or maybe any building for that matter, in my 3 years, chant a player's name. I heard it 3, 4, 5 times, and I think the 2, 3 times I was in that building, the Reggie chant. They love that kid. Clearly Oliver David loves that kid, and we've heard about this Dubuque team who had obviously such success this year in the locker room climate that they had and how well everybody got along and how tight that team was tied together. I'm sure Reggie Millette was a big part of it, and the story that was on NHL.com clearly showcases who this Reggie Millette player, not only the player is, but the person is as well.
It was a great article, not just because they talked about Fort Wayne a lot, my hometown.
Clearly a kid that deserves the praise, so congratulations to Reggie on the praise. And I think back to this season and what I remember thinking about watching this kid play, and it goes exactly along the lines of that quote that Oliver David mentioned to us when he was on for the Head Coach of the Year podcast when we had a couple of weeks ago, where he said, he's an average skater, he's an average puck handler, an average shooter, but what Reggie is he's not average in any category that he holds or values as a human being. And I'm looking at the NHL.com article because they quoted that in the article, and it's a perfect description of the player I saw on the ice because his motor never stops. He plays a very honest game. He plays physical. He's not dirty, but he is so effective. And I'm not sure if our coaching staff would want me to unfurl this or not, but I remember sitting in on a meeting before one of the Dubuque games. They were figuring out, how do we shut him down? Not from an offensive standpoint, but because of the fact that the style of game that Reggie Millette played forced teams to play a way they didn't want to play. And that's a really effective style to play. And that's a style of hockey that if you can keep perfecting that, Reggie can take that a long way in the hockey career that he wants to have, maybe longer than some guys who have more skill than him want to take their careers because they're going to put all their onus on the skill side of the game. And guess what? There's a small percentage of players that are going to play pure skill hockey at the NHL level, and I mean really small.
So moving on, it's time for our U Show podcast interview. And it was not what we expected, Ben. When we first talked to him, we thought he was going to be not very hands-on when it came to being an owner in Madison. We were assuming that he would talk about growing up and saying, oh, I wanted to play in the NHL. But he said he didn't really have any way about it. He just, he wanted to play hockey, liked playing hockey, but he wasn't like, I'm going to go to the NHL or bust. It was an interesting interview. It went differently from what we expected, and it went, hate to use the word better than we expected, but it was a great interview talking about all the stuff he does for Madison, how hands-on he is, how passionate he is about making it a top program in the USHL, and just his career path to the NHL is different from what you'd expect from a guy who is one of the league's best defensemen.
Not only that, Chris, but from my perspective, personally growing up in Minnesota, remembering that July 4th, 2012 deal where Ryan Suter comes in, Zach Parise comes in, they were the heralds of the resurgence of the Minnesota Wild and have gotten this Wild club back-to-back playoff opportunities that this Wild organization did not have since its inception. So they were a huge part of that resurgence for me as a young kid loving the Minnesota Wild, but also watching him in the media. He'd always kind of been just kind of closed, reserved. I'd never really seen him in what seemingly is a relaxed setting. Obviously never had the opportunity to meet him, sit down with him, get to know him, but I was really pleasantly surprised by how comfortable he was chatting with us. And I think he had fun with it, which you're never quite sure if you're going to get that with somebody that comes on here, if they're going to feel like we're just doing this because it's a favor to somebody or it's something to do. But he seemed like he genuinely enjoyed chatting about not only some of his career path, but specifically the Madison Capitols. And so that bodes well for the organization and the fact that they've got an owner who not only, like you said, Chris, is committed, but he's passionate about this organization. And clearly with the lineage that the Suter family has in Madison is really passionate about the city of Madison and the state of Wisconsin.
So without further ado, we're not going to give you all the details. You will hear it from the man himself, Minnesota Wild defenseman Ryan Suter. All right, guys, it's time to get to our interview. And we've been interviewing a lot of alums and guys that have played in the USHL, coached in the USHL. So now we bring in a guy who has done neither, but he's still a major person in the United States Hockey League, and he's got a big impact on the league and USA Hockey. We welcome in NHL All-Star and defenseman for the Minnesota Wild and franchise owner of the Madison Capitols, Ryan Suter. How are we doing today, Ryan?
Good, guys. How are you?
Doing very well. So obviously, a bit of a weird time right now, a crazy situation with everything going on in sports, but a lot of guys have been doing a lot of different things on staying busy during this break. What have you been up to?
Not a whole lot. My kids are out of school now, so spending a lot of time with those guys. Been on a lot of different phone calls with the NHLPA and with the guys there in Madison. So just trying to keep busy any way I can.
Ryan, let's talk about, the NHLPA side. How busy does that keep you? And not only that, but then the full time that does come in with being a father as well. I mean, you might say you might almost be as busy as you are during the season, but just in different facets. Am I right?
Yeah, I think so. I think now that we're kind of on hold with the NHL with actually playing, I feel like my days are more busy, dealing with kids, trying to figure out when we're going to play again, if we're going to play again, trying to work out, stay in shape, and just trying to be a dad and keeping all the balls in the air, I guess.
You have any great in-house gym workouts that you can give us that Chris and I really need it? You probably got a better workout regimen than we do at home. Anything you want to pass us along so we can get off the couch a little bit more?
Well, I think the key is to be active. Obviously, you don't want to sit around all day. I feel like every time when you're not doing something, you walk to the kitchen, you got to grab something to eat. So avoid the kitchen. But for workouts, I'm basically starting my summer workouts right now. Gonna try to, not be as sore as normally do when you first start them. But yeah, just no one's been on the ice, so it's tough to it's tough to stay in shape, but obviously you want to ride the bike and do those type of things to sweat a little and to be as active as possible.
So what type of teacher are you with the kids?
I have very little patience. I got to work on my patience. These teachers they're pretty special people to be able to deal with all these kids when they do. I think our kids are taking a little advantage of us. But the third day here was better than the first for sure.
Is there a Minnesota Wild teammate that stands out to you that would be the best teammate to be quarantined with during this time if you had to pick one?
Good question. If I could pick a place to be with someone, probably be the golf course with probably Eric Stahl. He's a pretty darn good golfer. If I was stuck at a house, who I would not want to be with, probably some of these young guys. They're just disasters. They probably haven't showered in 2 weeks, and they probably haven't been outside their house. They probably just sit on their couch and play video games all day. So I would avoid those guys.
We can leave them nameless for now to protect the innocent.
We're not going to sewer the boys.
Yeah.
Going back to around the time where, again, you didn't play in the USHL, you had the year at Culver Academy and then right to the National Team Development Program for several seasons, where at the time, even though the NTDP now is in the USHL, it was in the North American League when you were playing in the red, white, and blue in Michigan. But the USHL, what do you remember about that when you were of that age where you could have played in it? And was it an option at any time for you, or was it something that it was kind of programmed all the way for Ryan Suter?
Yeah, I moved away to Culver to play hockey, and when I was there, I got invited to try out for the U.S. team, and was fortunate enough to make it. And then once I was there, I was committed to that. I knew that I wanted to spend a couple of years there and eventually go to Wisconsin and play college hockey. I wanted to follow the path of my dad and my two uncles who also played at Wisconsin. So that was probably the biggest thing, is just focus on getting better to be a college hockey player. I never even thought about playing the NHL. I was actually thinking I'll play college and then go back and work at our rink there in Middleton.
Funny how in an odd end around way, you almost kind of are back at the rink working in Middleton now. Bob Suter Capital Ice, obviously not working there day to day, but as the franchise owner now. During that time, though, Ryan, were there friends of yours, teammates of yours that did take the USHL route? Do you remember some names from those days?
Yes. Like guys that came into college, a lot of those, pretty much everybody had played in the USHL. Guys like Pavelski, when I was a freshman, he was coming in. He came in when I would have been a sophomore. Carlson, there's just pretty much Baron Brookler, all those guys, Dan Besser, all these guys pretty much played in the USHL, and it's such a good league and such a good developmental league. I see why players want to play in it.
The NTDP has continually, year in, year out, just much like the USHL and USA Hockey for that matter, step after step after step. We obviously had last draft, the first round full of American-born players, full of NTDP players. How much pride for you do you have right now in the current status of not only the development program and the high-end talent that they're kicking out, but USA Hockey as a whole?
Yeah, I think it's pretty amazing from when I was younger, how far USA Hockey has come. I was fortunate enough to be on the first team that ever won the U20s or under 20 world championships. So that was pretty special. And then just to see how far it's come since then, where, we're regularly, right there in the finals, and the talent of the players now that are coming up, the Austin Matthews and those younger guys, the Hughes brothers. It's fun to watch. Playing world championships this last summer, or I guess it was last spring, the Hughes boys were on the team, and it was pretty neat. They were in awe They were walking around. They were pretty proud that they got to be on the same team as guys, Patrick Kane and myself and the older guys that are in the league now. And it's fun seeing these guys develop.
The UW-Madison connection, as we sort of start to segue into your connection, obviously now with the Madison Capitols, how much of an importance has been put on connecting with the students there, connecting with UW-Madison to help bring in a fan base to Madison? Obviously, the Badger hockey history there is an incredible one. There's got to be a little bit of a competition, I would imagine, with the Capitals there, but also there's enough students at that school where I'd imagine both can succeed, correct?
Yeah, we've always said from day one, the more success that the college has, the more success we'll have as a franchise. And last year was a down year for them. The last couple of years have been down, but we're hoping they improve. Obviously, I want them to be good. I'm a little biased, but and then Friday nights we do a dollar beer night every once in a while, and Andrew Jodry, our president, has done such a good job of getting these college kids out. And they have a good time. They cause some trouble, and it's good fun for everybody. For the players enjoy the atmosphere, and the kids they enjoy the beer, and they get to watch a little hockey.
It's actually pretty entertaining from an outsider's perspective, because I watch all the games on the live streams, just doing the video and stuff. And every time I see that there's a big, fraternity in the crowd, it's going to be more of a rowdy game. Because I think your boys get into it a little bit more too, because when that rowdiness comes, it kind of gives them a little extra adrenaline rush. And they, like those are some of the best games I remember from the Capitals this year, is when they have those big groups of kids in the stands. Yeah,
Andrew's done such a good job with getting people there. Not just the dollar beer nights. We've averaged over 2,000 fans this year, and it's been fun to watch the program grow. It's been fun to see him get into it, and when the crowd's into it, the players, obviously you always play a little harder when you got your home fans behind you.
Now, from a hockey perspective, obviously you're in Madison. You're the only school, you're the only program that is in the same city as a school, in the Big Ten, which is a big time school. Granted, there's a few others like Omaha and everything like that. How much of an advantage from the hockey side does that give you guys? And, all the way up to Wisconsin, I'm sure they're loving it too.
Yeah, I'm a little biased to the city of Madison, but I don't think there's a better city in the USHL to live in. When you're at the age of these kids that are in the USHL, I don't think there's a better place for these guys to be. From a community standpoint. Also, you have the university right there, so you get those coaches to come. They get to come to a lot of the games. They don't have to travel. When they're playing, when the university's playing and our team's off, our guys try to go to a lot of those games. Even guys that are committed to other schools, they enjoy going and watching those games too. So it's just a lot of fun for us. For me, being from Madison and getting everyone, or getting to show everyone, I guess, what Madison's about, and it's kind of a sneaky good hockey market.
You mentioned your father, of course, Bob, and Gary, your uncle, yourself, the Suter family. They're almost like the godfathers of Madison hockey. You look at the Madison Capitols and how rich that history is with the youth hockey, with the AAA hockey. The Madison Capitols, USHL, not brand new, not that storied yet, but it's been around now, north of a decade. How much pride do you have in the fact that you've seen what your father did for hockey in Madison, and now what you're doing with, obviously, several years now with the Madison Capitols USHL ownership? How much pride do you have in being able to give back to a community that clearly means so much to you?
Yeah, I really enjoy it. My grandpa started the organization back in the early 80s, and my dad ran it. And we've built it to, I think we have 11 teams now. And it's exciting to see the talent. We've always been kind of shy and humble about, promoting some of the players that we've had, until, recently last year, we we did a mural in the lobby there. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but we tried, and that's about a quarter of the players that either the youth or the USHL team has moved on. So we're starting to showcase more of what we've produced there in Madison. Phil Kessel, Jake Dowell, all these guys that have played in the NHL have at one time wore a Capitals jersey. Guys like Chris Chelios, Brian Rafalski, these guys played for the junior team back when my dad had it in the 90s. So there's a lot of history, and the more that we go, the more we're going to try to showcase that talent that my grandpa first saw and my dad carried on, and now to me and my younger brother Garrett.
Talking about the rink, you bring up the mural. That was not the only thing that's been added recently to Bob Suter Capitol Ice in Madison. I called my first ever game there, 2017, and went back last year and walked in the building. Not that it was by any means needed a ton of work before, but it looked like a brand new building.
That's all right.
It looked like a brand new building when I walked in last year. How excited are you about those renovations? And I'm sure, what have you seen from an uptick in attendance, I would imagine, from being able to come into a building like that now?
Yeah, so that it's exciting. We put some money into it. It used to be a youth rink that was 20 years old, and it needed a facelift for sure. We basically tore everything out of the rink. We added a balcony, put new seating in, and then also added suites. And it's a fun atmosphere right now. When Andrew has people in there, it's a tough place to play. And as the team improves, it's going to be that much harder.
You bring up Andrew Jodry. You've brought him up a couple of times. I've had the pleasure of meeting him at some sales conferences with the USHL. Tremendous guy, obviously a tremendous hockey background, a Division I player in his own right with some pro hockey to go with it. What has he infused into the Madison front office since you brought him on board?
Yeah, well, I think his first year, he had just retired, so he didn't really know what to expect. And then last year, he did a really good job 2 years ago, he did a really good job of, learning what it takes, just the ins and outs and all the different things that go along with running an organization. And then last year I guess it would be this year he's done such a it's hard to imagine what all the different things that have to be going through a guy's mind when he stops playing. All you worry about as a player is, I got to wake up, I got to go practice, I got to get a nap, and I got to play the game, and I got to be good. And when you retire from that, you see everything that goes into it, and he's really adjusted well to that. I know he enjoys it. I told him this year he's sold out a few of the games, and actually a majority of the games down the stretch were going to be sold out, the last 5 that we had. But he's done such a good job, and I kind of dangled a little carrot for him, told him that, hey, if you keep this up, like, we'll take out the one end and we'll continue to add on. The plan is to add locker rooms for all of our youth teams, and then put some more suites down there, and maybe another level for a beer garden, like a private beer garden on the other end. So that's kind of what I've preached to him, or I guess put out there for him, and he's going to make me do it here sooner than I would have thought. So it's exciting to see.
You talk about the transition from player to getting back into hockey. For Ryan Suter, do you feel like when that time comes, as it does to all players, is there going to be a tug on your heartstrings to get more involved in hockey than you are currently right now with the Capitals? Or do you think you might be one of the players that just stays more on the outside?
Yeah, I think I'll stay on the outside. I think early on, we're going on our 7th season now. I think early on I was trying to help out. We didn't really have a solid president in there. Things weren't going well, so I was trying to be more involved. Andrew's done a good job of turning that around. I think, as far as the organization in Madison, I'll probably stay on the outside. I'm always there, and that's when we're interviewing coaches or when Andrew needs anything. I'm always there to talk to people. My thing has always been, whether I'm investing in something or we're hiring a person, is it's always you bet on the person, and you invest in the person. So for me, when we're looking to bring in a new coach, a new GM, it's going to be I'm investing in the person and letting that person do the work. And but at the same time, I'm there because I enjoy watching the games, and I might know a thing or two about it if they would need any help with anything.
So you're obviously not a USHL alum, like we've mentioned a couple times, but we were actually joking before the podcast that you're probably the most USHL of any person that has never been a part of the league.
Seriously.
Do you consider yourself like a USHL guy? Do you take pride in the league? Like all these other people that have been a part of the league that we talk to, they're just so passionate about the league, and I can see that coming from you. Is that something that, even though you're getting your hand in it now, but you didn't grow up with the USHL and all that, like, do you still feel like you're a USHL guy?
I do. I didn't get into this to get rich off it. I got into this to develop players and to give our youth players a chance to play in this league. So I believe in this league. I think the talent that it puts out there, the development. I mean, moving away and being able to play in a league like this where the way teams treat you, it's second to none. It's a hard league. I think that's the best part about it. I think some of these kids, you hear stories of kids leaving to go to different leagues, and it's because it's easier for them. And I think the biggest thing that the USHL has is, it's a tough league. And if you're going to have success in the league, you got to be ready to put your work boots on, and you have to want to get better. It's and I think that's what sets the USHL apart from other leagues.
What have you noticed from when you first started seeing the USHL to now? What's the biggest growth you've seen in the league? And what you talked about it being such a hard league to play in, and it's such a league with such respect, and a lot of guys are getting drafted more so than ever.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Why do I think? Well, I think it's because the guys that stick it out and the guys that want to get better, they have that opportunity in the USHL. I think some kids. I mean, and every kid's different, right? Every kid's different, so it might not work for certain kids. But I think the biggest thing is just, you're on the ice every day. You have strength and conditioning. You have, first class everything. You're treated with like such a, I don't know how to explain it. I think just from different leagues, like when you're in the USHL, it's just a status, and the guys that are there, everyone else that's not there knows what it takes to get there. And I think that's a pretty special thing to have.
Who's the best Zamboni driver in the Suter family?
Definitely not my dad. He would be on the phone. He'd run into the boards. Garrett was pretty good, but I started driving the Zamboni when I was 14, so I think it'd probably be me.
Well, we'll see if we can't refute that. We'll try to get some witnesses to maybe see who's seen Ryan. Maybe that'll be a Twitter poll. Has anyone seen Ryan Suter drive a Zamboni, and can they vouch for his claim?
I'm sure a few people have. When people don't show up for work, I have to do it.
You mentioned, obviously, you've been by no means an absentee owner. You've been around. You've been in the building. One thing we saw, I don't know if, and I just saw it for the first time this year. I don't know if you've done it in previous years, but where you've come out to Bob Suter Ice with a Wild player, a teammate of yours, and it's kind of been a fan experience. How big did that draw? And I'm sure how fun was that for you and whatever teammate you brought to go to a town for you that means a lot, but for another player it might not mean anything, and go out and kind of be a hot shot for a night and obviously make a great evening for people in Madison.
Yeah, it was fun. I go down there usually a couple times a year to watch some games. And Andrew came to me. He's like, "Hey, like if you're gonna come all the way down here, can we use it to promote the game?" And I was at first a little hesitant because when you go, you kind of want to fly under the radar. But it was fun to see the people, the Madison people and the surrounding communities come out and support it, and kind of hear the feedback that they have from watching the games. And it was a fun night. A lot of people came out, and yeah, it was good. Brian Hartman came with me this year, and he had been to Madison a couple summers ago, so he knew what it was about. I think he was wishing that we could, spend the night and hang out a little bit. That I could go back right away.
Show them the haunts.
Exactly.
Hey, speaking of that, you've been mentioning Madison, and you said it's one of the best places to live, especially in the league. What's the one place you have to go to see as an attraction, and what's the best place to eat when people come to Madison?
It's a great question.
That's a great question. There's a lot of good spots. I think you definitely want to be there in the summertime. The lakes are pretty cool. The Union, you go and sit down have a cold beer and watch the boats and just watch kids walk around. We take our kids there. We drive the boat there and take the kids there for ice cream in the summertime. So, Madison's a beautiful city. The restaurants, there's tons of restaurants. Buddy owns a couple of them, but I'll keep the name off. But it's fun to visit for sure.
I mean, you can drop whatever name you want. This is free advertising right here.
Well, then I'll say it. The College Club. I'm sure you guys have heard of it. Back when I was going to school there, that was once I got older. Sorry, once I was out of school, that was kind of the place to go hang out, and it's still a good spot now.
People are going to be hanging outside the College Club looking for Ryan Suter now. That's hopefully bringing your buddy some business. Let's hope,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think that would be good for him. You better wait till Corona stuff goes away, though.
Yeah.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
Doubt,
Please stay home.
No doubt.
That was not literal, folks.
No.
But we got one more. Brent was asking. So when you drove down with Hartman to the game, who was picking the music? What was anybody singing? What was going on in there?
We actually flew down. I brought not a bunch, but I brought a few kids. My son Brooks and a couple of his buddies came with us. So yeah, it was a pretty quick flight and we played the next day, I think. So we had to get back right away after the game.
Well, I think that does it for me, Chris. Ryan, this has been fantastic. I really enjoyed this. Always fun to take a little bit of a trip through memory lane, I think, for some of the people we've had on here, but also it's very clear through this how passionate you are about this organization, and that's obviously only going to continue to propel the Capitals into a brighter future, and we're all excited to see that.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thanks a lot for having me on, and hopefully you get some guests that are a little more interesting than me. I think I'm pretty Hopefully you have a little more fun with it on the next one.
Don't sell yourself short. This was great.
No, absolutely not, Ryan. So thank you.
Well, there you have it. Minnesota Wild defenseman Ryan Suter, great guest on the U Show podcast. Loved hearing all he had to say, whether it was the Madison Capitols, the Minnesota Wild, or any of the fun we had on the podcast call. It was a good one, and thanks to Ryan for his time.
How about the plane trip too? I mean, you've made it when you're just a simple trip to Madison. Not that that's I think from Minneapolis, it's probably like 5 hours, which is, I mean, most of the rest of the world, right? We're going to hop in a car, but no, not Ryan Suter, not the Minnesota Wild. They're flying to Madison. I loved that. That was great. And it was really good to hear, like we talked about earlier, all that he is doing with Madison and the community. And it's an exciting franchise, right? I mean, you look at some of the recent success or lack thereof, and you might get a little bit disgruntled by that if you're a Capital fan, but we obviously heard about all they're pouring into the building there and the progress that they are making. And I for one, from as a fan standpoint, as a fan of this league, even though I do work for the Buccaneers, I'm excited about what could be in store for that Capitals team as they continue to take the right steps. And clearly it's in good hands, not only with Suter, but you heard him talk about Andrew Jodry as well, who I've met personally and is a great guy, and I think is going to do really good things there. So kudos to the Capitals and all they're doing to continue to move forward in the USHL world.
And a shout out, because I would have to say I think that they're probably my favorite logo in the league. I think it's very well done.
Yeah, it's a really good logo. I agree. Very good logo.
Yeah, so I mean, I know that's a side thing, but if there's jerseys or logos that pop into my head, I have to bring that up. So shout out to them. And like you said, I expect big things from the Capitals. It's not like they're sitting back, they're being complacent. They've had a couple bad years. Everybody has bad years at some point. I mean, it's not like Chicago was the darling of the league for the last 10 years and they've continued it. I mean, they were off and on, hot and cold, and then last year was an incredible year. So Madison had a great draft. They have great ownership, a lot of passion from up there, new coach. So best of luck to them going forward, and really want to wish the best to them.
Also, can't forget to thank Aaron Sickman with the Minnesota Wild for helping set that up. He's one of the real pros in the league up in terms of PR guys. So thank you to Aaron, and of course to Ryan and the Minnesota Wild for making that time possible.
Make sure to stay tuned to the USHL social pages and pay attention to all of the U Show podcast news to know about our next show and about future shows. And if you have any suggestions on USHL alums or anybody really that is involved with the USHL that you like, that would be a compelling interview, let us know on social media and we'll see what we can do. Ben, anything else?
Just a happy Memorial Day to everyone. Enjoy the weekends. Hopefully you find a way to get with family, whether it's not social distant. We hope that you will stay social distant during this time, but I know I'm going to do my best to see some in-laws here at a social distant way, and try to enjoy Memorial Day the best as we can and try to make it as normal as we can. But a big shout out to everybody in the armed forces who we're obviously celebrating on this Memorial Day coming up this weekend.
So for Ben Gisselson and Ryan Suter, I'm Chris Treft. This was the U Show Podcast.
This is the U Show Podcast.